Hey everyone, I hope you guys are well. Can you guys hear me properly? Just let me know if you do. I'm gonna stream this the first time I guess I'm doing a review stream, mostly because I'm actually free now. I'm actually off work for the holidays, so just thought it would be a good time to sort of revisit the game week, touch on my thoughts, maybe answer some chat questions, and hopefully keep this being a bit of a recurring series if I have the time to do it over the holidays. And maybe even like let's say speak to a bit of an audience that we don't usually get to speak to, right? Because we always stream so early, I guess, in a different sort of time zone. FPL Chai. That's not the real FPL Chai though, is it? Or is it? Oh no, it is. Sweet. How are you, man? Why am I FPL Pan though, man? Like what is that about? Yeah, 6K is pretty insane. I do need to kind of remember like where I was a couple seasons ago when I finished top 500. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Mohammed, I don't think you should quit your season personally. I think one thing I can say, for example, like last year is I've seen people with worse positions than myself now probably end up in a better rank that I've ever seen. So it really depends. 107 points, that's pretty mad. Congo man? What do you mean by that? Sorry. Is that like congrats or good morning, Osama? Nice to see you. 6K is insane. Yeah, I did speak on that. But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I would love to try and get another top 500 finish if it's possible. We're in a very fortunate position and the luck can just go the other way, which I think pretty much happened last season. So let's just see what happens, right? Um, 100K for a season playing. I mean, you're at an elite rank right now. Rank is 592. Amazing, Christoph. You captain Bruno again? Fair enough. I mean, it's kind of sad that yeah, like some of the captaincy differentials haven't really paid off this week in response to Haaland because he's been I wouldn't say he's lucky, right? But when you kind of watch the Crystal Palace game, I don't think he was amazing in that match. Yes, of course, he is the penalty taker of the team. You can't complain about that. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it would have been nice for us to have taken the risk at least another time and probably not get hurt by it. And I just wish Savinho shot. That's it. I think Wilson could get a touch worse. The thing that actually hurts Wilson the most, to be honest, is that he's not playing Burnley, right? What about 451? 451 makes a lot of sense. By the way, let me know if the audio is fine. So obviously I've changed microphones, but I don't know if this is like the maybe I just need to put my like microphone a little bit further away so that it doesn't sound so cackly. But just let me know if it's all right. Couple crazy scores here. 67 on the free hit. 76, sorry. Is that a green hour for you? I do think the free hit was a little bit unfortunate in the sense that some of the picks probably weren't as good as it intended. Like Ekitike obviously did amazing, but Palmer probably not playing. Like if you think about it, like most people would have probably bet on Palmer over Foden as an example, and it's unlikely that that outcome went the right way. Um, I don't. I really think that betting against Foden this week was sensible, but it did hurt managers. Otherwise, most teams didn't really seriously get clean sheets. Like I think if you were free hitting once again, you're unlikely to have moved into City defense or Liverpool defense. You probably actually sold those players on the free hit. So I think that's 2 to 4 points lost compared to, let's say, double Fulham, for example, blanking. Of course, most people could have considered double Chelsea, but I think even from a price point perspective, because you were spending so much money towards bolstering the attacking positions, it's unlikely that you actually ended up with double Chelsea defense. But I'm sure there's a manager out there who's got double Chelsea defense, all the midfielders that you want. And maybe that's for example, the enablers would have been someone like Harry Wilson, right? Random stream time. Yeah, look, I am a little bit of a night owl, but the difference is I don't have work tomorrow, so I get to stay up and do a stream. Am I making any transfers this week? So far, no. I read from a Hungarian news outlet that Sobo seemingly might be fine for Tottenham, or at least seems like that his injury is not so bad. So I think hopefully he is fine for Wolves at home. And I actually would like him to miss out Tottenham away, to be honest, because the team that I would field I haven't adjusted my team recently, right? So don't get too upset. But I think say Sobo's out, I think this is how I'm going to align my team. Probably Krupi here. Who knows? Krupi could be ahead. I mean, Burnley are really bad, but I just can't see myself. I just can't see Krupi starting because Evan Nilsson scored a goal, and that's unfortunate, right? Say Evan Nilsson blanked and Krupi actually scored that goal. Maybe we have another chance to go Krupi versus Burnley at home. It is going to be sad, but I feel like when I look at a team like this, I don't really mind backing double Palace defense. Leeds have actually been really good, and in fairness, it's not like this is the sexiest thing, but Anderson, I just have not been impressed with Fulham, and Krupi Jr. Just don't think he's going to get enough minutes. Big stiffy Fran time. All right, that's probably not. Let's not go with that. Please make these streams irregular. Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, I mean, I used to do this a couple seasons ago. How big is my FPL bank? Not amazing. It's 104.5 million. If you mean that, do you mean that? Hopefully that's what you meant. Thiago captain 83 points. Oh, that's tough, man. I'm not a huge fan of Thiago, mostly because the underlying stats just aren't good enough for him, right? A lot of the hauls have come from, to be honest, I would say slight flukes and just an absurd amount of penalties that you can't really sustain compared to some of the other picks. Like, for example, with, let's say, Saka, I would say his underlines are still better than Thiago's, right? And there's still a big fixture gap there. Leads are not that bad. With Haaland, he's just Haaland. Like, the underlines are still there for him. Probably triple of Thiago's in terms of non-penalty numbers. So that is more than significant. Other picks like Bruno. Bruno was my vice captaincy this week, right? So I would have loved to have vice Bruno, but the outcome was what? +2, +1, +2 points. Not saying that Thiago's ever a bad pick, but he can get a haul. This is what can happen when you're a striker, but he's not someone that I necessarily see as being explosive, just because also, like, it's not like I rate Brentford's attack as being that stellar. So I think when you're kind of charting baselines of players, unless the fixture is like supreme, then it's kind of hard to justify going it, because right now I believe Thiago's operating on something like 0.27 NPXG. I think he had close to nothing versus Leeds, so it was probably 0.30 before that match. But someone like Haaland is operating at literally, probably still around 1 NPXG per 90. So that just suggests, he's 3 times as menacing almost than Thiago, just in open play, and that's massive. You got 89 thanks to Bruno's final boost. That's pretty nice. I'm doing pretty good, Roja. Nice to see you around. Axel, thank you so much about the audio shout. Chai, thank you, my brother. How are you doing, actually? I mean, you had a great start as well. FPL Pan comes from a guy who came into my stream calling me Fran and told me Pan sent him. Bro, that's brutal that you're using that back on me. 104 all out, Oliver. Awesome. Free hit 17, 18, or 19. I've got to see your team. Let me just go into the super chats for a second. Atrax2555, thank you so much for the super chat from Hong Kong as well. Nice to see you around. I'm actually going to go to Hong Kong in a few days. Bench 1, Anderson, Fulham, Richards, Chalobah. I personally would bench. I would bench Chalobah. I know Chalobah has been amazing, but I'd still take my chances on Fulham first and then Crystal Palace. I do think Newcastle, we have to give them credit as a team when they play at home. I'm not really sure if I rate Newcastle anywhere else, when they play football. Unless you think that, let's say, like, this Newcastle team's like really leggy for whatever reason. I mean, unfortunately, they're basically a team that has played consistent midweek games nonstop, right? Whereas for Arsenal, they even at least get this break between this Wolves match and Everton. So they kind of have a nice opportunity here to get some rest and probably squash a pretty weak Everton team. So I would still bench Chalobah from that perspective. As good as Chelsea's defense has been as of late. Free hit 17, 18, or 19. Team scored 88. I mean, awesome for 88. If you can just write your team in the chat, I can probably actually just think about what the idea is for your team. Definitely way too punchy on the cap. Definitely mistake. Not reliable enough. Like City and the work. I'm not here to sort of, I guess, detract from what do you call it? Like, I guess the differential captaincy. So I think it's more like I tend to still think I need to have a really explosive player or an explosive fixture, if that makes sense. You actually just landed back in Hong Kong an hour ago. You back for the Christmas period? Almost scammed a pen. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. It's not like Thiago was like. I mean, Thiago still had great expectations for that match. So, for example, if we looked at like let's say I don't know Rob T's kind of market odds for the week, I'm sure Thiago was pretty close. What I tend to do in those situations is like if you kind of looked at let's say the projected goals for the market for that specific game week, I think Thiago was still behind Haaland. So that just tells me that I wouldn't really punt on Thiago despite the fixture being so good on paper, right? Yes, of course, it's away versus home, but it already seems like the market's recontextualizing two different qualities of players and two different qualities of teams and still giving you the context versus their specific opponents. So Haaland versus Crystal Palace away, Thiago versus Leeds at home. Now, Saka actually had, I think, projected goals of 0.63 versus Wolves, and you know he has massive, massive assist threat plus clean sheet percentage, right? So once you, I think, even let's say if you were to do something like simple maths, which would be like Saka's 0.63 times 5 versus, let's say, Haaland's 0.75, I suppose, times 4, you probably end up actually with knowing that Saka is the better captain on the sort of market odds, right? So for me, I would tend to rely on, let's say, a couple other sources to be comfortable with the differential captaincy. I'm not saying Saka has to be outright better than Haaland, because for me, I tend to, let's say, if I think it's a 50-50, I'll take the chance, but I probably wouldn't bet on a Thiago in that circumstance. And that's not to sort of discredit what you're doing there, because I used to be very gung-ho with captaincies. Like I've done things like silly things, like I've done Mitoma captaincies against Mo Salah in double game weeks. I've done Tony versus Harry Kane. And I think as I've learned over time, sometimes it's worked out for me and you get these massive differential holes and I think they're really stimulating. But from a data perspective, it's almost like if multiple other sources back, let's say, that despite the fixture gap with Thiago having a better fixture, that Haaland still has better projected goals. I can't really justify it from that perspective. It is kind of how my sort of decision making has changed over time. Would you move Thiago to Ekitike next week? I probably wouldn't. To be honest, I don't think Tottenham away is that good of a game. I know Tottenham have been terrible, but yeah, I'm not really sure if it's necessary. Personally, I think I'm going to persist with Thiago for quite a while now. I think Bournemouth at home and Tottenham at home actually look like really good fixtures, and the only tough game here is Everton away to me. So maybe, yeah, I'll revisit, let's say, Thiago in game week 20. But the tricky thing with Ekitike too is like if you look at Liverpool's fixture on, and unfortunately, I'm kind of divested out of what am I doing? Am I accidentally making transfers? Let's not do that. So I guess if I look at the fixtures for someone like Sobo, right? In a way, yes, of course, Ekitike looks super appetizing and he's just been incredible. But as soon as game week 20 comes around, I still think that you're not like I don't think I'm in love with the Liverpool picks. I tend to think Arsenal away is awful. Fulham away is I mean, Fulham, to be fair, I mean, I'm discrediting them as a team right now, so maybe I shouldn't be so anti Ekitike. He's been incredible. Um, hmm. Maybe if you're going to get priced out and you really think you'll go Ekitike no matter what, and you're going to hold him through 20 and 21, I can live. I think I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, but I just think Thiago has some good games himself, and I think that's the positive. Like that, even like the easiest game is away, so that's still nice context. And then the tougher games like Bournemouth at home and Tottenham at home. Yes, of course they got squashed by Tottenham in the reverse fixture, but we know Brentford are much better at home too. So I almost feel like he's a pretty comfortable hold. But if you're sick of him, fair enough. Who's the best replacement for Eze? Honestly, I would consider Ryan Cherky first of all within the midfield position. When I was sort of building out my cheat sheet today and sort of prepping for the video, I was thinking actually the first pick that I would go for in the midfield is probably going to be Ryan Cherky, who's if you're looking at someone who's cheaper than Eze. I've taken Eze out of my cheat sheet. If you can afford to, let's say, upgrade, I think locking in place Cunha can make sense. If you can maybe punt Semenyo for 2 game weeks, I think that makes sense. Yeah, Ghana didn't qualify for AFCON, but who's saying Ghana? Did I say your captaincies last season were really punty? They weren't punty though from a market perspective though. They were punty because I think I went with a very low risk option, or sorry, a high risk option, but I don't think I necessarily attacked it from a non-data perspective. It just didn't land, as I said. But I am more than comfortable doing those punts again. But that's my risk preference. Yeah, Semenyo's not going to AFCON. Oh, okay. I now see the response in terms of Ghana. So that means also Kudus is not going to AFCON. Many of us have triple city already with NOR. Yeah, I mean I've got triple city. That's why I'm only saying that's the first pick that I would go for. Um, but let's say you've got Eze, and you have triple city already. I mean I'd probably punt Semenyo personally. One stop shop a little bit. Get Semenyo, and the tricky thing with Semenyo, I suppose, is in reality you probably still want the United player. I don't think Game Week 18 Newcastle at home is that good for United though. Like I've got to be honest. I think let's watch United without Mbumo and Ahmad for one match. I don't think it's going to be pretty personally. But I'd love to see them versus Newcastle at home as well before I kind of pull the trigger on more United picks within my team. Brentford away is not the worst fixture in the world for Semenyo. Sade is interesting because, of course, if you like Brentford, but I think people are already starting to get a little bit sick of Brentford. He didn't play last match, though, so it's unfair to criticize him for that. But they will lose Dango, so it's almost like if they were struggling so much, with Sade in the previous match from an attacking perspective, and now they're also going to lose Dango now going forwards, I guess the team strength hit is still there. I don't think Minte is an awful transfer, to be fair. If you have rotation for Game Week 18 when he plays Arsenal away, then I think Minte is interesting after you wait for the price drop, right? Because he is going to price drop. Harry Wilson's not bad if you want to cut down in terms of price. I still think like players like Stack, Lefay, Weaver are all very good for Game Week 17. Not necessarily Lefay. Lefay has a good fixture in Game Week 18, but Weaver has Sunderland at home and Stack has Crystal Palace at home, which I think are generally good fixtures still. Good night, Christoph. You need to wake up early. Would you start Bowen or Elliot Anderson this week? I would probably still start Bowen personally. Would you go Semenyo for 1 week or straight to Cunha? I think if you have a lot of free transfers in the bank, I would personally go Cunha, or I'd go Semenyo. But if you don't, and you've already used quite a few of them, I would just go Cunha. To me, that's more of a free transfer response. Do I think Krupi starts against Burnley? No, unfortunately. This is sort of what I was saying earlier, where I think with Krupi Jr. scoring, that's great. But Evan Nilsson actually scoring a goal, and then, well, let's actually see, right? Because I think Bournemouth do have a cup game, don't they? Oh, no, they don't actually. So that's the problem for me. Because they don't have a cup game, and that's sort of what I was thinking. If Evan Nilsson comes off early in that match, and he gets that full week of rest, I just think it's so likely that Evan Nilsson just gets to play and starts again. So we're probably only going to see like 20 to 30 minutes of Krupi at best. And that's not good enough for me, right? Unless Evan Nilsson gets himself injured. Does Minte have to go? Not this week, certainly not. I mean, Sunderland at home, I think, is a pretty good game for Minte. So I would keep him for this week at least. But if you want to sell after that, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Yeah. It is a bit of a weird spot in the FPL like space where I think a lot of the good picks are quite cheap. And then like that territory of like the 6 million midfielders, I just don't love them. I literally own one in Sobo and I already regret it. But I just hope he comes back fine and he doesn't play right back with Bradley hopefully being able to play. Is Gibbs White good? No, I don't think so. I think he's also a little bit too pricey. I mean, he had a pretty hot stint a couple of weeks back, but his underlying stats, have not really like massively moved under the new manager. They are pretty good numbers, though, I'd say. So, for example, someone being on 0.26 MPXG is really nice. It just so seems like this season, for whatever reason, he's got no assistive threat. So, for example, because he's not really on a lot of set pieces, he's not getting that sort of additional vantage point that some of the other midfielders in the game have, like a Dewsbury Hall, who's obviously injured, or even a Garner now, right? If he's going to get more set pieces, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I don't love. I mean, if I look at the Nottingham Forest set piece takers, I think most of the corners have been taken by someone like an Elliot Anderson, and because Gibbs White has no set piece share, I feel like that is extremely devaluing for someone who's that expensive. Tavernier 2 weeks punt. I think Tavernier makes sense to me. I can't really see why Tavernier's minutes would be poor, but keep in mind the last time we had midweek fixtures, he was actually rotated midweek. However, Bournemouth did get completely smashed, so it's very likely that I don't think he'll rotate that hard again, because the reality is I think there's a huge drop-off between sort of what is apart from, let's say, Krupi being a good deputy to, let's say, Evan Nilsson, I think in other positions, especially with, let's say, the Tyler Adams injury, they just don't really have depth. So Tavernier should be good to go. You did look at Saka to Rogers and Gu to Ekitike. Rogers against United is juicy. Man, I love Rogers as a player in terms of watching him play, but sometimes I just look at his underlyings and I just think maybe I shouldn't be picking him all the time in FPL. Like, for example, I picked him for my free hit and nothing happened in that match. But then, of course, he's already scored like, what, 5 goals this season? Like, he's been scoring screamers left and right. But it's like, when is that always going to be guaranteed to happen? So he's had 2 braces this season, and they're in pretty weird matches, I would say. Like, Leeds away, I don't think is that obvious a fixture to call. So yeah, I mean, he's like scored in almost like every away match that he's played in this season, and he has blanked in some of the nice home games. He's blanked on, even for example, the start of the season when a lot of people went for Rodgers and Villa had a good run of games. Like he did nothing. FP Olympian says hello, Captain Tiago. I think he's on a beach somewhere, isn't he? Must be enjoying that Tiago captaincy. Tavernier 2 weeks punt to replace KDH. No, I mean, a fair play to Olympian because he actually does. I mean, like, I like the fact that he actually will sort of make a case for a punt and he actually does it, right? He's not someone who's like, oh, I'm recommending this and I'm actually not going to do this. And then when it works out well, I'm retweeting the fact that it works out well. He actually will live with the decision. He actually backs his decision making, and then he just if it fails, it fails. But it's like at least he kind of will own up to it by actually following through. And that's something I actually respect a bit more in FPL than what some other people do on a jet ski somewhere. It's great. Game week 17, triple captain Haaland. Yeah, I think if you've got triple captain, you just got to go for it. I mean, he is still the best asset in the game. I don't think there's a question around it. Sure, Foden has been great, and I'm sure some people have actually done some Foden triple captaincies recently that have been really good. But I would still take my chances with West Ham. Nunez is a pretty huge differential. Yeah, that's true. He's going up on the cheat sheet as well. Part of this because I think you can actually just benefit from any City defense. Out of the shadow, you've sent your team. Let me quickly... You added your team for the free head advice. Where have you added the team, though? Sorry. I'm looking at your chat messages. Oh, okay, I can see it now. So you got Donnarumma, Dubravka, Senesi. Right, so you actually have... I would not... Just because you got Senesi now, I just think... Okay, so you got Senesi, Timber, Kukurea. Interesting. Tio. So your defense is a bit weak this week. In the sense that I don't think you have a great third defender. You've got Kukurea matched up versus Tio. Estev with a pretty poor game. Maybe we have an... I would personally move out of Kukurea. I would take that opportunity because I still think Kukurea is a little bit overpriced. I think if you're ever to revisit a Chelsea defender, I would just go Chalobah. So to me, I don't really see this as an opportunity to free hit this week. I would actually just take Kukurea out. And that probably strengthens your team. As far as having Saka, Rogers, Foden, Anderson this week, I think that's all good. Mateta's not the best. Thiago's not the best. Thiago's great. Haaland is great. You guys are good this week. Yeah, I don't think you really need it this week. The way I see it is you don't have a lot of Brighton picks. You don't have a lot of Bournemouth picks. And that's sort of the value of the free hit this week. But you actually still... Sorry. I mean, you still have Senesi. I would probably still take Kukurea out, as mentioned. And I'd probably still take Mateta out. If you did 2 free transfers, right, which would be something like Kukurea out plus Mateta out, and you made the upgrades in those positions, I think you'd benefit. I also don't really love Elliot Anderson now. I think he could be a transfer out. Same with Tanaka. You don't have triple City, right? If I'm reading this correctly. So I feel like Kukurea could be a City defender. Or you can move Anderson to, let's say, a Ryan Cherky. Oh, you've got Donnarumma. Sorry, no. That's tricky then. I guess, who could Kukurea be this week who's a good defender? I mean, Tio's most likely to hit DEFCON versus Chelsea, but I just don't really like it. It's kind of tricky because this week... like, Collins is a pretty good defender, but do you want to spend that much money? I don't think so. It's not the worst Virgil fixture, to be fair. So there is the option of that. He is a bit expensive though. I guess there's Konate as well to kind of cover like that Virgil spot. I wouldn't advise doubling up on Bournemouth defense because unfortunately the fixtures are very hard to manage after this. So you want a pick who's actually just going to be a permanent play. You don't have triple Arsenal defense though, right? So I think maybe not triple Arsenal defense, sorry, but I mean you don't have triple Arsenal. I don't think this is an awful opportunity to suggest Cucurella to maybe Calafiori, because if you think about it, Calafiori is actually going to be someone who is like a permanent play option, right? So I don't see Miles Lewis-Skelly starting over Calafiori too often. I would probably actually consider Cucurella to Calafiori. This way you actually save a little bit of money, and maybe you can also move on Anderson. I mean, Anderson doesn't necessarily need to be sold because he can still hit the 4 points this week. So I think maybe you keep Anderson now, but maybe like, I don't know how much money you have in the bank, but I'd probably shop Mateta out. His minutes just like, to me, they're just way too suspect, you know? I think he's also carrying some sort of long-term injury as well. So you probably, like, what, do you have like, let's say if you did Cucurella to Calafiori, do you have an opportunity to maybe go Mateta to Ekitike? Is that something that you can consider? And I think you probably, if you are to do that move, that makes your team a lot stronger for game week 18 as well. I mean, where would your team be weak? I would say probably the main thing with City is that their fixtures are really, really good. So it's like, from a defensive point of view, am I worried about City at all? No. So there's like, I wouldn't attack City until like the tough fixture is Chelsea at home, right? Game week 20. So that's not a good angle. Maybe you can attack it by sort of saying, is there a bad week for Arsenal? Maybe Aston Villa at home, that's a good free hit opportunity. So 19 is not too crazy, I think. If you suddenly pick up, let's say, the Arsenal defender and you go Everton away and you go Bournemouth, like Brighton at home, I think that's pretty good for the team. That makes sense to me, right? Because if you think about it, if you free hit on 19 and you own Morgan Rogers, you are basically removing Morgan Rogers' worst fixture, which is going to be Arsenal away. However, you still have to deal with Chelsea away. Or is it Chelsea at home? I can't really remember what specific game that is. But I think that works out quite well. And from a Thiago perspective, game week 19, I think is... I mean, it's like maybe you would move off of Thiago in the free hit, but I think that's an opportunity. It's not the best fixture that he has. Yeah, so something to consider there, I would say. I'd love to know how many transfers you have, though. That's kind of the key thing. My thoughts on Harry Wilson. I think he's really good if you let's say have that Dewsbury Hall spot within your team. I think he's personally a pretty good hold. Have to wait on Solo News. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah, I mean Elliot Anderson. You're not as bearish on Elliot Anderson. Is that what you're trying to say? Or no Yates? Yeah, I mean Elliot Anderson's not the most interesting player. I don't think he's a priority sell, but I think other people do have the flexibility to move away from him. United lose their whole right flank. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I do want to see how bad United just are this week. Any news on when Branthwaite is back? Apparently, so well, the thing with Branthwaite is actually he's doing individual personal training on grass. There's another sort of, I think, German midfielder that they have in the team who's also injured. And the way that Moyes described the Branthwaite timeline was that I think I can't really remember what the guy's name is. I think his name is Merle Roll or Merlin Roll. But apparently he was sort of suggesting that Merlin Roll could come back into the team during AFCON and that Branthwaite is a little bit behind. So I think if you kind of look at the timeline here in terms of the game weeks, right? So if you're thinking about Michael Keane as a transfer option, what I would say is that it's very likely you get Michael Keane on game week 18 here, Everton versus Burnley away. And I think if let's say it lines up with my timeline, I think that maybe Branthwaite should come back around here, maybe around Everton versus Wolves, but it's unlikely that he's going to start, right? Because if you're coming back from a long-term injury, you're coming back from surgery, it's so unlikely you get thrown in immediately. I think he probably comes back more around the middle of January, and maybe if you let's say were to pivot into Keane, maybe the fixture that you lose is Everton versus Leeds. This is sort of my estimate in terms of the Branthwaite timeline. This is conjecture, but I'm just listening based on the press conferences and just talking about it. I don't think Arsenal defense is poor as an option. Dream Brother says he's considering Thiago to Nor. Great move. I would do it. Bruno to Sobo. I just don't think Bruno's worth the transfer out, honestly. Like, it's. Am I reading that right? Bruno to Sobo. And then 18, you're going to Semenyo to Bruno. It is a nice hokey cokey, but it's like, do you really want to do that? Fran, we go again, top 500. That is the dream, my friend. That is the dream. Roll this week, most likely. You better win FPL this year. You started well and playing good. I mean, I've been lucky so far. I don't think I'm playing much worse than last season, but I think people will disagree. But it's, I'm going to maximize as much of this as I can. What do you think of Anderson to Sade or Rogers for free? I quite like Sade. As a move. Yeah, Sade is actually one of the picks in terms of going back to the previous question on Eze. I think that makes a lot of sense. In fact, FPL Nap, I would consider Sade as well, right? I was suggesting Cherky if you don't have Triple City. So I think if you actually don't have Triple City, I would go Cherky first of all. But I think Sade is getting a rise in my cheat sheet. Semenyo is as well, but of course he's out of your price range. So I think, that makes sense. My goat Fran, thank you, CPAX. By the way, 200 of you guys in the chat, thank you guys so much for joining me here. It is 1 a.m. But I do like staying up, and if you're enjoying the content on the channel, please feel free to like, do subscribe as well. Goalmouth game, yes, defenses both sides. Thoughts Ekitike. I quite like him, but I think it's very hard for me to move into Ekitike myself. So I'm probably not going to go for Ekitike myself. Do you think it's possible to go from 4 mil rank to top 500k? 100%. I literally know someone, I think last season, who was at 4 mil in the middle of the season and still finished like top 300k. So if you're making solid moves, things will eventually fall into place for yourself. I do rate the United attack, especially like, for example, you look at a game like Bournemouth today and they were shocking, right? And Mbuma was pretty shocking this match. One thing I will say though is that Ahmad is out, and I think Ahmad is just such a big miss. That for me is the concern. It's just the fact that you now have two really solid options. And this is a bad Mbeumo game, but it's like for most matches, he is kind of the dominant sort of open play attacker, right? Cunha obviously has stepped up as of late, and his underlyings are looking really solid. So I think Cunha is the obvious pick going forwards. But yeah, that's my general concern is going to be what is going to happen when you have Ahmad out of the team and you're looking at that right-hand side and no one's really comfortable playing there. And honestly, we're 2 or 3 weeks removed from them not being able to even create a good, consistent chance versus a 10-man Everton, right? So I don't really want to do a hokey pokey with Bruno. Need to find some sort of entry to Nor, though. Eye test and data is absurd. Essentially, I think he's a better version of Guardiola left back, but maybe if I could ever give a criticism to O'Reilly, I think Guardiola kind of has those crazy finishes in his locker, right? Think about the goal versus Newcastle. Like the fact that you're shooting with your right foot, I just think Guardiola sometimes has this weird bag, if I could say that. What to do with Minte? I think if you can go Semenyo, I'd probably go there. I don't think Minte is necessarily a sell, but I know he's dropping in price, and if you want to sell, you could probably go tonight. Bournemouth away form like Bournemouth shipped literally 4xg tonight, or 3.29, sorry. So if you're thinking about a team like Bournemouth, I mean, I was trying to defend Bournemouth's defense away from home. I don't think I can do it anymore. I think they're just simply bad. Love the stream. Do it regularly, please. I appreciate it. Love you. Sobo to Semenyo or Anderson to Sade? I think Sobo seems fine. So if you can keep Sobo for Wolves at home, I would do so. I would probably consider Anderson to Sade. But let's just wait for the Sobo news, right? And I think that's sort of the plus. Guardiola has the striker gene, and maybe a part of it too is like both of them have scored goals for Real Madrid, but that Guardiola goal, the right foot finish, like I mean, what the finesse even, like what was that? Should I go -4 Cucurella for Lacroix? I don't think that's worth a -4. I really don't think that's worth a -4. What's your thoughts on Cherky versus Manu as a one-game week punt? I would probably go Cherky. The main pro with Cherky as well is that I think Cherky has better staying power because the city fixtures are really good, right? So if we look at the city fixtures, let's say you go Cherky, I don't think you mind, honestly, owning Cherky for Nottingham Forest away and Sunderland away. These aren't as bad games as we probably would have thought previously. And City's attack is just good. You didn't see the notification? Yeah, I mean, this was a bit of an impromptu stream, so I appreciate you being around there, Jay Watts. Your opinion on how full versus Nottingham Forest matchup will go? Bench Anderson or Anderson? I think I would rather bench Elliot Anderson. I still back the home team most of the time, anyways. Um, and Fulham, to be fair, have been shocking versus Burnley, have been shocking in the last few matches, but are still relatively solid as a home defense. I guess I'm not that enamored by Elliot Anderson and his role, regardless of if he plays a little bit more of an attacking one. So I'd probably still take I just think it's basically Elliot Anderson's chance of getting an attacking return versus let's say Anderson's clean sheet odds, and I think Anderson's clean sheet odds probably pip that just a bit. Can we see bus team? Yeah, of course you can see the bus team. I was showing so. Look, I need to kind of figure out. I mean, I would love if Evan Nilsson got injured in training, but I think if Sobo's out, this is probably how I'm gonna line up, right? If Sobo's out, if Sobo's fine, I'll need to consider like what role he plays. I think if Bradley plays, this is most likely Sobo on pens for a bit, and Isak maybe not even, I guess, taking too many minutes on the field. Like Ekitike is playing too well. So I probably would actually go 4-4-2, back double Palace defense, and play around with that. Could downgrade Anderson or Anderson to get Nor. Don't think Premier League has seen 5.5. I'm so lost. What does that even mean? FPL Hippie, nice to see you around. Good morning. CPAX, Richards, or Anderson next week. In terms of playing, I think I would actually prioritize Richards right now. I just haven't been that impressed by Fulham. Hinkapia looks good for 3 weeks at least. Yeah, I think Hinkapia is good to go for this fixture. But it seems like, honestly, Gabriel could be back after that. So I would love for Hinkapia to be good for this game, the Knicks game, like Brighton at home, and maybe even Aston Villa at home. But it seems like there is a plan for Gabriel to return around then. Sobo has a great record against the top 6 clubs. You don't buy into the agenda. I mean, I think Sobo's an attacker at the end of the day, and Leeds away is not that spectacular a game. Yeah, Fulham have always been decent at home, but you also, part of the context too is like Chukwueze's gone, Bassey's gone. Like the team is not stellar. And to be fair, they have shipped quite a fair bit of home XG recently. It's crazy. A sort of dead spot like Mukiele gives me a benching headache every week. No, I mean, that's the thing. This is what I was trying to say in terms of like, I think someone in the chat last week was asking about a free hit, and they were sort of asking like, why would you go for a Sunderland defender on the bench, but as an auto sub? And I thought, they just have a really good fixture there as an opportunity, and there's just good value from a lot of the defenses that aren't Burnley. Like even Esteve, at the end of the day, as bad as Burnley are, the fact that he can actually get DEFCON just means that you almost have a foolproof way to getting like sometimes a minimum of 3 points, and sometimes like that's actually better than projections for, I don't know, like Dewsbury Hall versus Arsenal away. Like I would consider playing Esteve versus Crystal Palace at home. Do you think Semenyo is fully back now after that 8-game goal drought? I mean, he looked pretty good last match. What would you suggest I do with KDH? Same team as you, barring him. I think Tavernier is a pretty interesting short-term punt, like for 2 weeks. Otherwise, I think I'd probably consider Weaver even, but he's on 4 yellow cards. Or I'd consider Wilson, to be fair. If you actually have the money to go Wilson, I don't really mind it. Sure, he's a short-term punt, but I think the pro of Wilson is if his minutes are perfect and up to scratch as they have been so far, I can't really see why he's not a good perma hold. Thoughts on Bruno Guimaraes? I think he's been pretty fortunate this season in terms of how many goals he scored. I don't think he's like a god tier FPL pick. And unfortunately, I feel this way about both Bruno Guimaraes and Morgan Rogers in a sense, right? The underlying data is just not good enough for me to say that they're astoundingly good. And we've just come through a Newcastle run, and to be fair, Bruno G has done well over this run, but like they've not looked incredible. Like I think amassing something like 0.25 XG versus Sunderland is not very impressive. Semenyo hasn't been bad at all lately. I agree. I mean, he's actually looked pretty good, to be quite honest. I do think Semenyo's like a little bit off pace. I mean, Brooks, you can never guarantee the minutes for Brooks though, and it's not like Brooks always plays well. like I'm not sure like what data were you referring to here? Are we just talking about like underlyings? Because part of it too is like if you're well, most football studies have shown that if you're a super sub, your stats tend to get inflated in terms of the NPXGIs. So I think it's also like very hard to say that that's like why someone's going to operate so well. Why Lacroix over Anderson? I would rather play double Palace defense than play one over the other. So like I would rather have Lacroix plus Richards than let's say Anderson plus another Palace defender. And also honestly, I don't know. I feel like Palace's defense just give me some hope, inspire some sort of confidence in the team. I think watching Fulham versus Burnley probably has kind of fried my brain a bit because I just watched the team like concede 2.5 xG to Burnley. And unfortunately, like, yeah, Fulham were just bad. So when I look at the clean sheet odds for this week in terms of like the market odds, they're super close. It's like Fulham probably 30%, Crystal Palace 28%. So I think if they're close anyways, I'd rather take the opportunity to get much more, like a much higher ceiling by backing the same team twice for the same outcome at least. Is Mateta sell? I think so. Yeah. For few chances, would you go Anderson to Wilson? I probably would do that. Yeah. 5.5 Premier League first. I'm so lost. I might be stupid, but I'm sorry. If Burn out, does Hall have more secure minutes? I mean, I think, yeah, inevitably, Hall just has to play. Part of it, too, though, is that they've had to protect Hall because he's just been injured himself, right? Like, he's coming back from injury, and I think all Eddie Howe is trying to do is just manage his own fitness. But yeah, I mean, even within the previous match, he just played, right? So I think, yeah, you're just going to have to force Hall to play, and unfortunately, like, they don't even have Trippier back, so it's, like, very tough to find situations where you can actually bench Hall at this moment in time. So he'll just have to play. In theory, what you could do sometimes is like you could play Livermore left back and Murphy right back in a back five-ish, I guess. But even how do you even get to a back five is probably a better question. I mean, via when Brooks is starting, completely agree though. But that's what I mean though. So like once you're looking at just Brooks purely starting, that's also like a very restrictive data set, right? Fingers crossed. Best of luck, Constitution Pictures. Anish, nice to see you around, my friend. Anderson or Virgil or Chalobah for Gaming 17. And just like, are we just talking starting here? I'd probably go Anderson, then Virgil. Anderson or Virgil, I think is 50-50. I would play both Anderson and Virgil over Chalobah for sure. I think I would go with Virgil though, honestly, from what I've seen from Fulham recently. Mateta's got to be a hold for one more week against Leeds. I just don't think Leeds are that good, like bad, as a defense. What makes us think that they're that bad? So I know Leeds have conceded a lot of penalties and they're like bottom 5 in the league for XGC. But if you kind of look at honestly like the XGC, there's a huge density between or packedness between, let's say, Bournemouth, who are 5th, who have conceded something like, okay, after tonight, Bournemouth are going to fall down, right? So not a good example. Let's say Liverpool at 6th, right? Liverpool are kind of like 6th on XGC. They've conceded 19.6, and Leeds are like bottom 5 right now, but they've only conceded 22.2. That is a minuscule difference. So it kind of just shows you that the mid-table of the Prem right now, so basically any team that's not Wolves, West Ham, and Burnley, generally have a pretty good defense in place, and there's not a huge difference in terms of separation. So I feel like the ranking in terms of XGC is not great data. I show it on the cheat sheet, but I still trust, for example, just the XGA per 90 almost, or per match, because that gives you better context, and a lot of teams are close like that. So I don't think Leeds are that bad, to be fair. And it's also Leeds away, right? So Crystal Palace's, let's say, their away data has also not been exceptional. And once again, once you contextualize that Mateta doesn't play, like, let's say the full 60 minutes, sorry, not the full 60 minutes, but I mean like the full match, then that's a problem. So Crystal Palace in terms of away data, I think are sort of top half in terms of offense, but yeah, I just think Mateta's minutes are just not great. Why not use NPXGC? Yeah, that would just bolster Leeds a bit more. The problem with NPXGC is I don't really know a great source that shows like the split between NPXGC between home and away. But yeah, in terms of like actual NPXGC, like as opponents, I mean, Leeds, I think, are actually bang on mid-table. So I think they've only conceded something like 1.29 per game. So they're just like right in the middle of the mid-table, right next to Fulham, for example, as a team. Start Waltmart or Stack? I think I would probably play Stack, honestly. I can do Mateta to Ekitike and Kukurea to Guehi. I quite like those moves. Yeah, I'm down for that. Best time to buy Rogers? Probably this week, or you're most likely going to skip him because the reality is Rogers after this game week it has two really tough games. Question in regarding to Dean's, seeing Matson playing more minutes, not an FPL asset per se, maybe singularly a free option this week with someone with a horrendous rank. I mean, are you really going to go Aston Villa though? I just feel like if I was to give faith in this United team at all, it would not be on defense. It would probably still, at the end of the day, be on attack. So I just don't really know if I'd back an Aston Villa defender, if that makes sense. Any thoughts on Welbeck and Sunderland? I mean, he's a great pick, but it's like I don't think he's really worth a transfer, right? And you're seeing that his minutes are so poor. He's not really a great hold. Is going to a one striker formation silly? Not really. I guess what type of team do you plan on owning in a 4-5-1 structure? Would be a curious question for me. Because I guess when I look at my team, right? If let's say Thiago became another stronger midfielder, maybe that's just me saying that maybe Szoboszlai could be Cunha, but does that make my team better? And then maybe I'd have to just move one of the Crystal Palace defenders to Virgil, which I'm not sure if I love entirely. Bit of a tricky situation there, I guess. Obviously, the cheat sheet is out yet, but is Anderson still a green and is Lacroix better? I think Lacroix is better, but obviously the price gap makes Anderson still a green and Lacroix for now is still a yellow for me. But I don't think there's a huge separation between the two. So if you ask me to play one or the other this week, I would still play Lacroix over Anderson. That doesn't necessarily mean that Lacroix is like outright better than Anderson because of price point. Game week 19 captaincy Bruno Holland. I would go Bruno, and I'm likely to go Bruno. But I know a lot of people are probably going to go Holland. And I'm not someone who's just saying that now. I think I'm pretty much I'm locked in on Bruno. I mean, Wolves at home. If I'm not there for the captaincy, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you think Sabo will drop in price this week? I think it's possible. Yeah, it's pretty possible. At the same time, I think is he kind of like, is he price locked potentially? Or has he just sort of just been unlocked because of the flag situation? Because sometimes when flags come into the game in FPL, it kind of changes the transfer pricing scenario a little bit. Maybe he doesn't drop. I just think people are so unlike, not that many people moved into Sobo last week, and I think a lot of the people who moved into Sobo are unlikely to sell him. Krupi not good enough against Burnley. I mean, I don't think he starts. That's the problem. You don't think Sobo price altering is an issue? Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you kind of view it as in like he could get a massive haul versus Wolves, like you're going to get that price back, right? So in my position, I'm just going to wait whether he's available or not. Are you going Semenyo out after Burnley? Yeah, either on 18 or 19, right? So of course, Brentford away I don't think is a particularly poor fixture, so I don't really mind keeping Semenyo actually. What am I doing with Sobo? Most likely benching him for this week unless he's ruled out for an indefinite amount of time. The way that I see it is if he misses out Tottenham away, perfect. I get Wolves at home. So that's just pretty much it. Can get a massive haul against Spurs. God knows Hungary did. Yeah, I mean, Spurs is shocking too, right? So that's a pro. I will play Sobo if I think he's going to start. What do you think about Gu? I mean, I feel nothing about him. He's just there to be a 4.2 option. He didn't even play last match. And it just shows you that he's not rated, unfortunately. Like, he's not going to play much football. At least Krupi Jr. does play football. Hincapie an issue. I mean, he'll be an issue when he's an issue, right? There's no point worrying about Hincapie until Gabriel is genuinely back. Do you think Chelsea will once play with a consistent... Yeah, 100%. I feel like if we can get to a phase where Fofana can sort of play close to 3 days a week, you're probably going to see Fofana Chalobah all the time now. Semenyo for Sobo roll. I probably would one free transfer. I probably would roll, to be honest. What is your auto sub this week? I suppose if Sobo doesn't start. Your Papa says serious dilemma. Would you play Chalobah or Klein from Crystal Palace for next week? Man, that's a tough question. I need to double check whether Klein actually got any significant DEFCON versus City because we don't have a huge sample size on him either. So let me just revisit that. Yeah, he got close to nothing. And then got subbed off early. I think I'd play Chalobah there, genuinely. It's not really worth that. Because a lot of the value attached towards Klein is, or a Crystal Palace defender specifically, is the fact that they can get DEFCON. Or, like Mark Recchi, they're just insane. Have people missed the boat on Wilson? Not necessarily. No, I don't think that that's actually the case. I think if you let's say you got a KDH injury and you're actually you need to shop for someone in this sort of price point, I don't think you've missed the boat at all. That's a pretty good pick going forwards. And it seems like he's just going to be permanent. I don't really think that that can be disputed too much. Do we dare go back into Tavernier? Not that I've owned him in FPL, but it's just weird. Like sometimes he can just get benched, but he's actually played so many minutes this season. I think he's played like 1390s. Which is like really good. And that's not even including today's match. So that's basically like 85, like, I don't know. That's not 85 minutes per game, sorry. So I think he started 13 matches, but I think no, he actually does have 1390s, yeah, just because of the auto subs, of course, in the games where he was benched. So yeah, I mean, he's played a lot of minutes so far. And you can't really complain about that. Even in recent games. And I think all the Tyler Adams injury just means that he's most likely going to get a spot because he kind of plays midfield for them. So Tavernier is definitely a pretty interesting pick. Honestly, may downgrade a Anderson to Enzo Lefebvre. I think that makes sense. If you're not going to play Lefebvre next week or this week and you need him next week, it works quite well rotation-wise. Tavernier and Forsob, that could work out, yeah. But once again, it's kind of like a short-term punt because I will say that the Bournemouth fixtures coming out of that are pretty poor. Do a wildcard team for Game Week 17. I'm probably going to do a video for that first, but I'm happy to do one around the deadline stream. When do we drop Raya? That's a tricky question for me to answer because I feel like I'm not going to do it anytime soon. I don't really see a reason to because I also don't see that much money needed to be spent in other positions where I feel like I need to get the Raya money out. Maybe if there's a world where, let's say, I go Raya to Sanchez and I feel like that 1 million or close to 1 million actually gives me a lot of value, I'd probably do that. Start Sanchez or Verbruggen. I'd definitely do Verbruggen. Does Harry Wilson remind me of Torres? Like face wise? I mean, I guess so. Yeah, to an extent, I can actually kind of see what you're saying. Pickford in 18, that's a solid move. KDH for Sobo in 19. I mean, KDH might not be available in 19. Do you like Pope plus Chalobah or Sanchez plus Tio? I mean, Pope's not even playing right now, right? So I'd probably just go Sanchez plus Tio. I know what you're saying when Pope is back, of course. But yeah, I think I'd still go Sanchez plus Tio. Because let's say, I guess Tio is cheaper than Chalobah and Sanchez is cheaper than Pope, right? Don't you think Rose is going far under the radar? I feel like we've kind of missed the boat on Rose in a sense. I still think when you look at the Sunderland fixtures, they're pretty poor. I would have said last week was actually a really good fixture on paper, right? The next few games are Brighton away, that's pretty tough. Leeds at home is a good game, to be fair. But after that, this is the run. City at home, Tottenham away, Brentford away, Crystal Palace at home, West Ham away. I don't know. I'm not sure. He's also 4.7 million too. So people have already invested into him. I probably would, like, if I'm shopping for someone sub 5, I think I'd still maybe just go Sanchez because I trust the Chelsea defense, even though their fixtures are tough in the short term. Like, you're going to own a goalkeeper for a long time, but I'd say Sunderland's fixture run up until the next wild card is not great. What is the best midfield pick now? I mean, let's just assume that everyone owns Foden, Saka, Bruno. I think if you can get to Semenyo, he's one of the midfield picks. I think if you can get to Cherky, he's one of the picks. Otherwise, I feel like you're just messing around with some of the cheaper players, right? Like some of the 5.5 type players and things like that. They're the ones to me that interest the most. So like maybe it's going Wilson just because you need someone for 2 weeks. Maybe I wouldn't say Cunha now because I would say I really want to see how United play without the AFCONers. So let's just see how it goes. Sobo over Gu? Yeah, definitely Sobo over Gu. I mean, like, you're not expecting anything from Gu, really. You're considering bench boost 18 with Dubravka, Hartman on the bench against Everton. I think that's fine. I do think Cunha is a fantastic transfer next week, right? So 18 plus. If you have to pick one move, would it be Minte to Semenya or Teodo to O'Reilly? I think I would actually do the O'Reilly move. I think Minte has such a good fixture himself that you don't necessarily need that upgrade. And O'Reilly has a really good fixture run indefinitely. So I'd probably benefit more from owning O'Reilly. Once again, like part of the reason why I moved into the 3-5-2 structure was because I was so confident in O'Reilly's minutes and also confident that I could just hold Hinkapie for Tarkowski or Dallo or maybe even going Calafiori. I would really like to own Calafiori if I can. And I feel like instead of maybe going for Gabriel necessarily, I think there's an opportunity to do that. So let's see what happens, of course, with the injury situation. Magassa for West Ham. Yeah, I mean Magassa. I mean honestly, all the West Ham midfielders are kind of interesting, right? Like Potts, Fernandes, and let's actually kind of track. Like I need to sort of retrack like some of the DefCon here. I mean Potts, I know he got benched for one of the games, but he's been pretty solid. Yeah, so the DC numbers, to be fair, that's not stellar. I'll be honest, that's not great. How's this man doing on DefCon? Pretty good. I mean, he might be the pick, right? Matheus Fernandes. The problem is he just doesn't have penalties, so it's like kind of a tricky situation, but he's really good at DefCon. Let's have a look at Magassa. I know Magassa's already scored a goal, but yeah. My problem would be like, is he gonna start every single match? And if he does, then maybe that's like he's one of the go-to picks as well. I guess the pro is we get to see once again, the problem is like when you line up versus a team like City, does it even actually give you any information at all? And also like if some of these players can get rested between a midweek game, is it very likely that they also miss another future midweek game, which we're gonna have two midweeks in the future that we need to deal with. So it's very unlikely that you benefit from that. Paqueta, I'm not in love with him, but I'm sure his DefCon's pretty poor though. Yeah, this is this is terrible. This is terrible. Obviously, his role's completely changed this season too. So different manager. How long's KDH out for? We don't know. I think scans are happening for him, but a hamstring injury, we're talking 2 to 4 weeks out, right? You're rotating third defender Van Heck, Senesi, Anderson. Fair play. You had Potts for a brief respite. His DefCon dropped, but he has corners. That's true. One free transfer, Anderson to Harry Wilson. Oh, man. I do think this is quite short-sighted just because you got one free transfer and you don't have anything to fall back on. But if you want to do it, go for it. Do you rate Kilman? No, I don't. I don't think he's even like... I prefer Mavropanos. I know he scored an own goal recently, but Mavropanos is so much better at DefCon. So much better. Let's have a look. So these are his numbers, right? This is CBIT per 90. Sorry, it doesn't go per 90, does it? But these are his like CBIT numbers. So he's hit 104 DefCon in basically, or yeah, you can see it, 10.95, right? Now let's compare to Kilman, who to be fair is a lot cheaper now, but much worse, I think, as a player for what you're talking about here, 9.21. So pretty considerable drop off in terms of DC per 90. I would go with Mavropanos. Yeah, he is honest work. Foden TC over Hollandish out. I mean, yeah, Foden's been nuclear hot, but I think I'd still back Holland personally. What to do with Szoboszlai and KDH? I think KDH is a sell. I think Szoboszlai is a wait and see in terms of the news. Because KDH, I think, quite clearly has a hamstring injury. That should mean that he's out for 2 to 4 weeks. Sobo, obviously, if he has a bad injury, that's a problem. But it seems like the Hungarian news outlet that's already reported on Szoboszlai scans have mentioned that he doesn't actually have damage. Kanji, nice to see you around. How long do you plan to hold on O'Reilly? I mean, I think he could be a season-long hold. That's how good he is. I mean, I've always had faith in his minutes, and that's not going to change until something I see on the pitch changes. Like, he's pretty much impeccable as a player. I don't see anything really wrong with him. You're already starting to see him play versus teams like Sunderland. The only time when City's fixtures actually get brutally poor is like around game week 22, right? We've noted that the fixture runs like okay, United away, Tottenham their bogey team 24 away, Liverpool 25 away. That is a bad fixture run 3 out of 4 games. But I guess if I can keep him on the deck, like I would keep him. I mean, we just saw 3 of the toughest fixtures that City possibly had, and I think they're in a title race, so they're not going to try and play B team anytime soon. So yeah, realistically, like, why would Pep even dare not play O'Reilly for a single match when he's just done that? 3 fixtures in a row, tough fixtures, played him 90, 90, 89. Like, insane player. 6.1 midfielder. I mean, to be fair, Harry Wilson's still around. Tavernier is pretty interesting too. Unfortunately, you're priced out of Turkey. You know, Minte could be 6.1 by tomorrow, right? He could be a decent pick if you actually have someone to cover the Arsenal game. Struggling on deciding between Bowen and Ekitike. To get Ekitike in, I have to sacrifice Semenyo and move to a 6 million midfielder. Well, I mean, in that case, I think just wait out the Semenyo thing, right? Because you might want to sell Semenyo anyways, if that makes sense, after Burnley at home. And in a sense, you don't necessarily need Ekitike for Tottenham away. So is it possible that you can delay the move for 18? I guess both of them are moves in 18, but yeah. I don't really mind you going Bowen, because I do think Bowen actually has a generally cleaner fixture run. You know, we kind of mentioned that Liverpool have 2 great games, but then suddenly it's like, you know, a Fulham game and an Arsenal game. Not so great. Is Rice a hold or a sell? I probably would sell him, if I'm honest. I don't think he's necessarily worth the price point. I know he's been incredible this season. Like, there's no disputing it. And realistically, most of the midfielders here on this list are all set piece takers, right? They've all got an assist from set pieces in some sort of way, and they've all done really well. But as I was trying to say with some of my videos, it's like, if I was to bet going forwards, I don't think Rice is a top 5 midfielder in the game. And I'm happy to say that. I'm happy to say the same thing about Bruno G. So let's see what happens, right? Like, I do think Saka is someone who I think should be rising on this list. But in fairness, like, even someone like Neto, like, I mean, he's not really been on my cheat sheet, but like, his minutes have been absolutely stellar, and you know, maybe I probably just I'm disrespecting him a bit, but yeah, I think the types of picks that I think going forwards that are the most interesting to me would still be like a Cherki. I think he can easily rise up on these lists. There's a couple AFCONers here as well, so obviously those players will fall. Like, Wilson's obviously showing a lot of value because he's a set piece taker. But with Rice, yeah, I think he's quite expensive for what he does, if that makes sense. And to an extent, I feel the same way about Bruno G. So when I say, like, I like Harry Wilson, I just don't see, like, is there a huge gap between that? And also equally, I think that the argument still, even though Arsenal's lost so many clean sheets back to back, is it still the case where I think, would I bet double Arsenal defense or would I bet on double Arsenal offense? And maybe some people will just be like, I don't even own triple Arsenal, so fair enough. But I think I'm still of the mind, and obviously I'm already biased because I've done this, but you know, for a reason too. Like, I think I'd rather bet on double Arsenal defense because I think that more midfielders in the game can reproduce what Rice can do. That's what I think. I could be wrong. Than, I guess, Arsenal producing crazy underlying stats that should hopefully lead to clean sheets in the future. I know it hasn't happened as of late, but that's something that I'm expecting. Like, I think Calafiori is someone who could rise up quite quickly here with 2 clean sheets off the bat. Off the bat. Same with Timber, who can clearly get a nuclear hold too. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I feel like because I love Esteval so much, I've disrespected Neto, but he's just been so consistent since the Club World Cup, right? There's like kind of no disputing that Maresca absolutely loves him. Like, there are some occasional matches in the midweek where you get rested, right? That's the kind of problem with Neto where, and to be fair, he scored in that match too. I think it was versus Leeds, right? Where he was rested and he kind of played a B-string team. And I feel like maybe he also feels like he can't get away with playing a B-string team. So Neto's just been really good. And his underlying stats are okay, but I think the pro there is he's also a Chelsea player. Anish, thank you so much for the super chat. Raya, Richards, VVD, Timber. Yep, love it. Semenyo, Saka, Foden, Wilson. Love that too. Welbeck. I mean, that's a great team. I mean, the team that you've got starting should start, in my opinion. I'm happy with Anderson bench. I think even the bench order is fine. Am I a full-time content creator? I am a full-time. No, I'm not. I work full-time. I'm just off for December. Like, I've got my holidays. I've got my annual leave. Wait, did the price rises happen already? Did I just miss that? God, I might be an idiot. I might be an idiot. Maybe I'm not an idiot. It hasn't happened yet. It has happened? Why am I so stupid? Why do I think it's 2:30? I must have like forgotten like when it actually changed time zones in terms of like, let's not even talk about it. All right. Let's not even talk about it. Oh, mate, we finally got the lacrosse selling value back. Let's go. So yeah, if you do transfers here and you click on list, you actually get to find out like this is a super useful tool, right? So you get to find out what the current price of the player is, what the selling price of the player is. This means that this is how much you can, I guess, sell it back to the market for, and then the purchase price. So Lacroix, wait, Lacroix didn't rise. Come on. Wait, no, he must have risen though, right? Because if the selling price is 5.1, it just means that the website hasn't updated. So do I just refresh the page again? He must be 5.2. There can't be like, okay, yeah, fine. It works now. 5.2. Also, please buy Richard so I can get some selling value on him, please. Thank you very much. O'Reilly, hopefully he rises as well. Hopefully Hincapie rises again. Mateta down. I need Semenya to go back up because as you can see, I bought him for a price drop. Although I did get a goal out of him, so I will take that. Foden is Foden. Bruno is Bruno. Krupi Jr. is better than Gu, and Thiago everyone owns, so who cares? Very much a Buzz Lightyear pick. The rest of the field doesn't really matter. I'm doing pretty good in terms of transfer value. It's not a game for transfer value, but it's nice to know that I have good transfer value. You think they increase the threshold for rises and falls? Do you think that's really the case? Because we've had so many price rises and falls. Yeah, the crowd did rise, which is fantastic. Are Villa players ever going to be a pick? For me, the problem with Villa is generally who is the pick, right? Okay, Rodgers can brace here and there, but it's like not even a forward I can trust. The minutes aren't even good for anyone. When Diaz scores goals occasionally, but it's like he's not on the pitch half the time. Dean and Matson rotate. Cash is quite nice, but then they also still seem to lose a clean sheet a lot, but still end up beating teams by 1 goal. That's pretty much been the story of their season. Like Tottenham, for example, score 2 screamers and they win. And to be fair, they've played some good games recently. Like the match versus Arsenal, they played really well. I mean, Rodgers will never get pens. It seems like, right? Because I don't know why, but I would love if Rodgers could get pens. Semenyo decreased yesterday, so today's goal should help push his price up. Yeah, exactly. Watkins is the pick, of course. He's so reliable. Yeah, really enjoyed Watkins from Game Week 1. What a pick. One of my favorite players to own in FPL. Thoughts on Rice? I think he's pretty sellable from this point on. Krupi is life. Holland EO prediction. Tricky one. Probably like 230%. I think that's pretty fair. What's my exact OR? That's a good question. 5775. That's what it says on the website. I can just move it around a little bit, right? I can't be bothered to move it around, so I'm just going to drag the screen. Here it is. 5775 just for you. Villa goals are spread across 5 players. Pretty much, yeah. Like, first of all, I don't think they're a stellar defense. And second of all, the defense doesn't produce DEFCON, right? The way that they play just doesn't do it. Rogers is probably one of the best attackers, but you've seen, like, for example, McGinn is in a round. Cash somehow is, like, their second leading goal scorer, which is just mental. Or maybe third, I think, because when Dia probably has scored a few. Malin probably too. I mean, yeah. It's just tough. And I think, yeah, Rogers is having such a stellar season, but it's like, I don't know if I can, I can't go into Rogers and then go Chelsea and Arsenal. I won't do it. I can't do it. Rogers is no Van Heck. Man, Van Heck is the jammiest pick of all time. Although I did own him, as I said, in some other fantasy game modes. Arjun pulled the trigger early this week. Sobel plus Gu out. Miley plus Ekitike in. Fair play, man. I do hope Ekitike goes crazy for you. Trini, you want to have a rank like Fran? Um, God, I still feel so bad in game week 1 when I did this. It makes me so upset. I don't know why, for the first time ever, like I just didn't. No, sorry, it was game week 2, right? I don't know why, but like I just did. I had Mark Gu as an auto sub, and I didn't even think about it when I could have just Poro right there. So I'm super mad about the 4 points down. And to be fair, I was way too aggressive here in game week 3 when I took a -4 for Gyökeres. To me, those are the only mistakes that I've made this season, and that's cost me a net total of 10 points. But I think every season in an FPL season, like you're going to see managers make mistakes. I am very aggressive as a manager. I will never sway away from that. But I think what I was sort of losing sight of here in game week 3 was that I was too obsessed with the idea that I thought I was going to do a late wild card. I don't know why. Maybe I watched too much of Praz's videos and loved wildcard 13 as an idea. But yeah, that's the only thing I kind of regret from a conceptual standpoint, because you need to understand in FPL almost every season, your plans basically go to you know what, and you just need to accept the fact that you're going to wildcard. So for me, the way that I interpret a hit is you take a hit knowing that over the next 5 to 8 game weeks, you can recuperate the hit. I'm not someone who believes that taking a hit on that specific game week, you need to recuperate it. I think that's just nonsense. It might be the case that you actually benefit, and of course, that's the ideal situation. But more often than not in FPL, I feel like the reason why I take hits is because the hit that I'm sort of bringing in, I am trusting that over the 5 to 8 game weeks that decision is going to pan out with a net +4. I'm not saying that on that specific game week, I'm going to get the +4 back. That's not really how I would think about it. The problem here, of course, is that I then had 3 hamstring injuries. Well, I technically had a groin palmar injury, which meant that I brought Cunha in. Then I had 2 hamstring injuries here, and then I just forced the wild card. So if I knew I was going to wild card in game week 4, or even the possibility of it, I should not have taken this hit here. And then, yeah, as I said in game week 2, I don't even know what happened here with the bench. Let's just not even talk about it. But yeah, I mean, we've recuperated well in terms of rank. Can't complain, and let's just try and get a better rank, basically, right? If we can. You took hit 3 weeks ago, Virgil and Sar to Bruno and Ben Heck, success. Well, that's the thing too. It's like, I mean, that's a successful hit, but it's like I don't feel so bad even if it's the case where you just get +4. You need the consistency from now on. Imagine you score 15 or 20 points above the average and still get a red arrow. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. My mistake was never owning Gabriel. I was pretty lucky. I had a good Gabriel draft, right? 4K. I think we thought Gu would start in game week 1 and 2, and since he was at so, yeah, that's true. Crazy that Watkins is 5 XGI. Well, that's the thing. Like, Rodgers has had a huge overperforming season, but, you know, I don't dwell on past mistakes. It's just a mistake is just a lesson learned, right? Or if you're not learning from your mistakes, then there's no point really making them. My own mistakes, not hearing your advice after game week 10. Well, I'm not saying I've got perfect advice. I mean, the thing that's nice about FPL is, I think when things are going well, people tend to think that you're playing well, you're doing good. I don't really see, like, for example, let's say if I have a red arrow, I don't think that I made a mistake that week. I tend to just think, okay, that was a pretty bad outcome for my team, but I look forward to my team as long as the rolling team that I have, the bus team that I have, is good, right? To me, that's like good decision making. Last season, I pretty much felt that I had a pretty good team more often than not, and it just ran really, really poorly against me. But sometimes you just need luck in this game, and I have it right now, so I will just enjoy it. Best KDH replacements. I think Wilson is nice. I think if you want to go cheaper, I don't think Weaver's crazy, but he's on 4 yellow cards. I don't think Tavernier's crazy either. I think these are pretty interesting picks. If you really want to maximize like saving money, I think Anton Stack is not too bad either. Your biggest upset this season's Seb's is a triple captain Holland against Leeds. Well, that's the thing too. It's like, I don't know, that is such a brutal outcome. You know, that is just a swing. I don't think you can ever say that someone made a bad decision in captaining Holland versus Leeds. I would have never had said that to anyone. So yeah. You're so glad you bought Wilson, Saka, and Bruno. I mean, that's pretty mad, to be fair. Well done. Any chance going Gabriel if he's fit again? I probably will, but I might actually go Calafiori as well and kind of, you know, sidestep that. I mean, how much has Gabriel dropped in price? I think he's like 6.2 now, maybe? Or is he 6 point? Yeah, he's still 6.2. And is it because I guess because he's red flagged, does that mean he drops in price less, like less fast than usual? I think that's the case, right? I could be stupid once again. No Virgil transfer in the future. I don't really see it. I feel like I've kind of made my bed in a sense. How many years have you been playing FPL fantasy football in general? Probably around 5 years now, I would say. I mean, like I've had an account for longer, but those were like seasons where I had a team and never touched it again. So, for example, like finished 2.7 mil, and another team where I literally played 5 game weeks and finished like 6.7 mil because I literally played five game weeks to just like have a friendly competition with a friend. But like the full season, the first full season that I actually played was I think in game week like 2020 21. So since then I've been playing like every season since then, right? Van Heck going forwards, he's a good pick. Like he's solid, but I mean, he's not amazing at DefCon. I think Brighton are decent at defense, but nothing special either. Who do we reckon as pens for Everton? Well, now that KDH is out, I feel like that takes another player out of contention. I think you almost have to allow the strikers to take the pen though. I mean, like Barry has a decent penalty record. Beto definitely is on penalties if he's on the pitch. So I feel like you just have to let Barry take, right? What's the transfers that I've made? Nothing so far. De Kuiper from Brighton is calling you so bad. I mean, he didn't even play last match, no? Why is he calling you? And Matoma's back too, so it's like I don't really see what the appeal is. If you were to wild card now, who are your must-haves? I mean, fine. Let's do like a very rough draft wild card. Do I plan on keeping Anderson? For the next 2 weeks, yeah, I would say so. I mean, would I? Let's just start with this, right? He's the most expensive midfielders possible. Do I stay within the structure? Very possibly so. I don't really know if I'd go Ekitike. I think I need to have an honest thought about it. Maybe it is worth punting on him. Maybe we'll just go like 3-5-2 with Ekitike. Obviously, I need to figure out like how I'm gonna manage my team as a result of this. But let's see. It's annoying because I actually really love Sanchez as a goalkeeper. uh, Verbrugge and Dubravka just have such good rotation, so I feel like maybe that just saves so much money. Maybe something like this. I don't know if I need Anderson though, right? So let's say this week I play Calafiori, Richards, O'Reilly. Then next week I play Calafiori, Richards, O'Reilly. Or I play Calafiori, Tarkovsky, Richards. Oh, sorry, no. Calafiori, O'Reilly, Tarkovsky, yeah. So I don't need Anderson. I still think Mukiele is like maybe the best value defender. Saves me a bit of money. Maybe do I go Cunha instead? The problem here is like I don't have a convenient move to Cunha, right? Like I've got the money in the bank. I mean, I guess wow, Nunez is actually more expensive than O'Reilly. That's kind of mad for me, I guess, because of oh right. Oh, of course. I guess I don't really mind doing this, right? I can just go Gu. In a way, I feel like this is a pretty strong wild card because you have the Verbruggen to Raptor rotation, which is good. You have probably the most interesting Arsenal defender, I would say. You have the most interesting City defender. You've got Tarkowski, and you don't have to deal the consequences of Michael Keane losing minutes back to Branthwaite. You have Ekitike for the short term. Like, is this a bad team? I don't think so at all. I think this is a pretty strong team. I'm pretty happy with this, in fact. Something like this, I would suggest. I guess if you really wanted to squeeze it, like you could go Keane because you, I don't know, for whatever reason, like you might think I want to go start with Timber and then like what downsize to Gabriel or something like that. But I don't know. I quite like Calafiori, and maybe if you've got 1.1 million in the bank, I mean, what can we do? Does that mean we go back into Raya? Not even. Like I can't even afford it, can I? I mean, maybe we just go Alderete. Surely is he 4.1? Yeah, we could just go Alderete. I think that's fine. I would not feel bad about a team like this on a wild card. Something like this, maybe. Because this way, right, you're kind of like permanently playing Calafiori O'Reilly every single week. Then you're saying, when Crystal Palace or Everton have a good game, I play the other player. And sometimes when Sunderland have a good game, like for example Leeds at home, you know, or regardless, like this is still a good auto sub option in Alderete, right? And then in the midfield, I think the beauty of Wilson is that let's say Wilson doesn't work out so well. In theory, you can always downgrade to someone who's decent. Um, Gu plus Krupi. But what is the point of Gu plus Krupi? I don't really see it. Or are you saying you rather someone like Semenyo over Ekitike? I guess is the question. Um, you wouldn't take Wilson. I guess you could go Tavernier, to be fair. Yeah, I kind of see the logic of that. The main thing is though, right? Like Tavernier's minutes is so up and down, whereas Wilson's minutes are kind of good, and he's a set piece taker. And I know Tavernier obviously literally scored in set piece today. That's not really my point. I just think like someone who kind of plays 85 minutes a match and like still has really poor fixtures because this is a 3-5-2 structure. So it's like, do I feel more comfortable playing, I guess, Wilson versus Crystal Palace away, Chelsea at home than, I don't know, Tavernier versus Chelsea away, Arsenal at home? I don't know. I feel like maybe I actually like Wilson more in a weird world. I agree it's a bit of a dead spot. If Sunderland were a little offensive, I mean, he's not a 6 million defender but yeah, he's a very good pick. And he's a really good def conner too. Alan Wright, thank you so much. You're the best content creator. Yeah, so far this season we're pretty well ranked, but I mean we kind of have to do it all the way to the end, otherwise it's kind of pointless. So let's make sure we do that. Sorry, I'm kind of zoned out. Because I was just thinking about like I'm just looking at like Twitter just to see what's up. Chat, if I make transfers before I activate free hit, will the player still be there after free hit? No, they will not. Your team will literally just be the team that you had before the free hit week. What am I doing awake? Doing a live stream with you lovely people. I feel like LeFay holds similar value to Tavernier and Wilson though. No, I agree with that, to be honest. I don't really disagree with that. It's just like, okay, so you've saved the money, but it's like, what are you gonna do with it, right? Like in a weird way, it's like I would be happy with the team that had all these players. And once again, the only conundrum that I have is like maybe okay, I do want Tarkovsky over Keane, but this is the FPL team that I would realistically want to have if I, like money wasn't a problem. Like I don't even mind going stack in the midfield, but it's like does that kind of advantage me at all? It's just a bit of a weird one. Cherokee too is like a super scary pick. Like I kind of wish I could have him, but I am so happy with O'Reilly as well. So yeah, I'm just whining about nothing really. But why would you captain Saka? What, like this week? Because he was playing Wolves at home. Team value is not the end all be all for anything though, right? So you can always. Oh no, I'm not captaining Saka next week. No. I'm like I don't know. I think I'm like my brain's shutting down probably because we're approaching 2 a.m. But let's just jump back into answering the questions and the flow of it. Right? Is Foden a must buy? A must buy if you've got Palmer, Saka, Bruno? Probably not. But I'd consider why you have Palmer when his minutes are still probably a little bit dubious, just because he's like struggling with this groin issue, and obviously they still need to maximize Champions League and stuff like that. So, the priority for Palmer's minutes could suddenly change towards Champions League because Chelsea still need to chase points there. Sorry, and get a good group position. Best time for bench boost. I've got to know your like some of your team, and we can probably discuss that. Who do you think is the best option to replace Thiago going forwards? You're already set with Hincapié, Anderson, Gueck, and Riley. Well, that's the thing too. Like, do you necessarily need to replace him? That's a question sometimes you could just ask yourself. Where you won't feel too bad about owning a Newcastle player a couple of weeks down the line when he's got Burnley at home, right? Telling us a lovely bedtime story. Trying to think about it. Well, I was playing League of Legends today, right? And I was playing an ARAM, which is basically just a very for fun game mode. Like it's a game mode where I think if you play with friends of different skill levels, it's probably the best place to play because it's kind of like you don't really care so much about whether you win or lose. You're just trying to play and have fun with your friends. So at around 10 p.m., I think we're finishing a game. In this game mode as well, all you have to do is sort of like defeat the enemy base, and we chose to kind of have a laugh and decided not to close the enemy base. And suddenly they started coming back really hard. So they were kind of like, I think they had a better team comp than us, but we had an early advantage and we snowballed that very, very early. And literally at the end of the game, they were starting to win a lot of the team fights, and you could kind of feel like the tide was sort of flowing the other direction, but we had already defeated so many of their structures. All that we needed to do was to kind of defeat one last structure. There's one specific champion within our team that's like invisible, so he can kind of go through enemies. But that obviously means that if one of our teammates departs us, he leaves us in a 4v5, and we're definitely going to lose that fight. So, but what we agreed was that, because we only had that one structure, he can go invisible, he can go past the enemies, and he can just kind of end the game by himself, whilst we try to sort of pretend and set up that we have no defenses, and we're just trying to, go with our last stand. So we do that. And literally, like, by the end of the game, like the enemy team in chat, I think I've just beaten us in the 4v5 that I mentioned that we were trying to set up as a trap. And they literally just keep typing easy, easy, easy in chat as if they've won the game. And whilst they're typing this in chat, suddenly our friend is already done killing their base. And and yeah, I can't imagine how much, I can't explain how much fun it was. But if anyone's played League of Legends before, you'll know. And we dropped a couple of easies back on them, but that's because they started it, and it was absolutely hilarious because they were so sure that they were won or in a winning position. Leander Fernandez says, "Is it too late to buy Wilson?" I don't think so. Can we see your team for this week? You're doing great, brother. Long may it continue. Yeah, of course. I was playing a bit of LoL. I don't love LoL, to be honest. I quit LoL a long time ago. I played Valorant instead. So if anyone who plays Valorant and wants to start playing Valorant again, let me know. I'd probably consider it because that's the game I think I'd pick up again. The other game, yeah, I am definitely toxic on League. Let's not even talk about that. The other game that I actually play often now because it's relaxing, is old school RuneScape. Is Curtis Jones 5.4 a good pick? I don't think so. I don't think his DEFCON rate is good enough. That game took a lot of, like, yeah, I don't know. My mental health is worse for playing League of Legends. Let's just say that. Are you telling me Croupy next game week might actually be a play? I don't think so. In terms of member questions, though, as for the Lefay over Wilson argument, Alderete to a 4.6, I suppose. But the thing is, like, if you do Alderete to a 4.6, right, it's like, is that actually an upgrade? Because, like, do you, let's say if you're planning to play 3-5-2 every week, I guess that's the main thing, right? It's like suddenly once you move into Lefay, you're basically saying, I don't want to play Lefay every single week. I do think Harry Wilson is close to being good enough to say, okay, I think he can actually be like a close to a perma play option, maybe better than optimizing defense. So it does depend. I think that's kind of the threshold. Sunderland defender better or brighter defender? I think Sunderland defense is probably better because actually there's a few of them who actually get DEFCON and they're cheaper, and I don't think they're hugely worse than Brighton defense. As a result, who would you downgrade on this wild card with 3 million less team value? I probably would not own Saka. Maybe like I think I guess, do we keep Saka or do we keep Ekitike is probably the question. I think either of them could go. I think Wilson could obviously, like, if you're looking for money, I really don't mind going stack. I'm being serious right now. I really don't mind going stack. I really don't mind not having Raya as well. So once again, like, we go for Bruggen. This UI is gonna kill me one day. If we don't go Saka, right? Or, like, once again with the Ekitike thing, like, I don't think you need to have him necessarily. Like, I think I'd be happy with Thiago, right? And suddenly that's all the money back in the world that we need. Even Alderete can be upgraded a little bit. So I think this works out well. Alternatively, if you want to go Ekitike, I think you could always have Saka in, like, the Semenyo position, right? It doesn't hurt to have Semenyo for a few weeks actually over Saka, because you're not going to captain Saka too. That's the biggest thing that I want to say. So if you're actually looking for, like, punts, I think Ekitike makes sense. Not only are you benefiting from price rises, but you actually have some really good short-term fixtures, and people might still be moving to Ekitike week per week per week. So this is another structure too that's pretty interesting, and that allows me to probably push this guy back into Raya. Yeah, so this is an alternative draft structure that I quite like. The way that I see FPL anyways is that you kind of have competing paths and they're very similar, and you kind of just have to choose one and you have to be comfortable with what the outcome is. What's the best funny FPL manager right now? What does that mean though? Like, funny because they're bad, funny because they're funny. I agree Ekitike is pretty much up until just game week 22, no? You'll send me Discord on DM? Yeah, go for it. Do you think Szoboszlai is playing game week 18? Yeah, I think so. Based on the reports that we've seen from Hungarian outlets, but it could be wrong, right? Slot could just come out and just say Sobo's out for like 2 weeks, and I'll be like, oh, well, that's not very good, is it? To be honest, like, you've actually got a pretty good bench boost this week. I just think with Krupi Jr., like, I don't think it's worth the transfer moving him out. He's probably going to get minutes versus Burnley at home. This is such a good chance for him. Dubravka just needs to make some saves, and, like, either way, you probably win out in one direction. Most weeks, anyways, you're expecting Dubravka to lose a clean sheet. I would not recommend people to use a goalkeeping transfer to improve a bench boost over Dubravka. And then Tuchel can get DEFCON versus Chelsea, and you actually have like 4 wonderful defenders outside of Tuchel. I would probably use it if Sobo was fit, you know? And if Sobo is not fit, then maybe we can reconsider. But I think I would actually consider just going for this week. I'd still keep Tuchel for this week. It's like you're not selling Tuchel because you want to have a better bench boost. I just don't think it's not justifiable. It's one free transfer. You need to roll the free transfers to make better moves in the future. Let's hope he's back. I think so. Funny FPL manager. I love Marku, but I wouldn't say he's not. He's hilarious as a guy. No deadline stream on Saturday then? this is not the early special. I'm planning to do just a few review streams now that I'm actually on holiday. You know, before I get busy again and work takes over from me. The one who leaves the game from Game Week 3 and still top 50k. You mean like didn't make any transfers or something like that? You wish Subway doesn't play. I wish Sub was rested for Tottenham as well. To be honest, I don't really care. Is it worth selling Guimaraes for Wilson for 2 game weeks and buy Guimaraes? No, I don't think so. I really don't think that's worth it. All right, that's pretty much it in terms of the stream. I think we've covered a lot of questions. If you guys have enjoyed the chat, please feel free to like and subscribe. Really does help out. I don't like McAllister as a pick. Leaves the game totally. Like, what do you mean? Like, as in, like, doesn't make any transfers, right? Yeah, I think you should definitely roll AMS. Should I look to sell Anderson in the defense because Fulham seem to be poor defensively? If you're relying on Anderson for the next 2 weeks, I'd just keep him for the next 2 weeks, and then I would sell him after that, right? Just give Fulham the rest of the fixture run, and that's pretty much it. Okay, I think that's it for me. I haven't set up my team. This is not really my bus team, but let's just see how it is. Take care, guys. I'll see you guys soon. And yeah, have a lovely game week 17. But of course, we're going to have a lot of content for it, and we will keep you updated.